Good evening. Ooh, I'm double mic'd here. And the idea is to not touch them, is that correct? Okay. I'm Janie Cohen, I direct the Fleming Museum, and we are delighted to have you all with us on this beautiful evening. We're really pleased to have Diana Whitney reading with us tonight. And I just wanted to say one thank you to Doris and Jerome Markson, who are underwriting the Painted Word poetry series, and we are really, really thrilled about that. So we thank them. They're not with us, but we're really delighted. And this is year 5 of the Painted Word poetry series. I know, it's incredible. We are really pleased to have Eve Alexandra leading us this fall semester, and maybe longer. And I am delighted to introduce Eve, who is in the UVM Department of English, and she will share some further acknowledgments and thank yous. So thank you all for joining us, and enjoy.
Thank you, Janie, and thank you all for coming out on such an incredibly gorgeous night. So I know Diana has a little competition with the weather here. So first of all, I want to thank everyone at the Fleming, especially Janie and Chris and all my colleagues in the English department, and of course, most importantly, Major Jackson, who had the great vision to put this program together and is such a wonderful citizen, a poetry citizen, I think, in the world. And of course, I'm always nervous I'm going to forget the James and Mary Brigham Buckham Scholarship Fund for allowing us to have this wonderful programs. And I also really want to thank all the students, and I see lots of my former and current students here tonight for coming out. In one of my classes, we started with Dana Joya's, maybe somewhat notorious essay, Can Poetry Matter? And I love that there was a resounding yes from all my students. I was telling Diana I was so busy trying to think of interesting things to say that I forgot her official biography, which includes such illustrious names as Dartmouth and Oxford and Warren Wilson. And I also love that she was both a Rhodes Scholar and a yoga teacher, because I bet those two don't, in poetry, they don't frequently intersect. But when I was thinking about her work, I was thinking, probably about 2 weeks ago, I saw the Richard Linklater film Boyhood, which many of you have seen, which is wonderful. But I found myself thinking as I was leaving, they would never make a film called Girlhood. They would never spend, all that money and span 12 years. I could just imagine the pitch to the studio. And if they did, the girl or the young woman would never survive, so unscathed by all the trauma in her life. So I thought, if we don't have films like Girlhood, thank goodness that we have poets like Diana Whitney to cover this harrowing and beautiful time, especially of girls who dare to want it. And I would say, one of the things I always try to talk with my students about is think of your family tree or your genealogy as a poet, and I can't think of much higher praise than when I first opened this book, and the first poet I thought of was Sharon Olds. So thank you so much for coming tonight, and I welcome Diana. And after Diana reads, we'll have a Q&A, and you'll get a chance to ask her some questions. So please join me in welcoming Diana Whitney.
Thank you so much, Eve, for that introduction. And thanks everyone for coming. It's great to be here. So I'm going to start with the first poem in my book, which is about life in a small town. Maybe some of you are from small towns, but I'm talking a very small town, a couple houses, a crossroads, a dairy farm in Vermont's Northeast Kingdom. So this is called Peckville. I didn't want to shock the neighborhood, pour my hot crystals into the ice bleach blue. Still, I tried on men like dresses, the lace to take to the wet, smoky dive, or the silk for Mozart and cheese in the meadow. City mouse, country mouse, I trapped them all. Up here where we eat flowers and lambs, we eat the birds from the sky. Each weekend, another truck in the drive. Gone before church, but always spied by someone, the oldest lone farmer in Peckville, making his rounds on a homely tractor, his wagon full of young white cedar brush, cut fresh and steamed open in his old cedar still, trickled slow down a rusty pipe and skimmed for a few precious bottles of oil. Sticky, thick, and black as pitch, when he fired it up, the whole town smelled like Vapo-Rub, or the lubricant for the barrel of a gun. Black fly season shot specks of blood along my arms, and I dug in my nail to get out the poison. X marked the spot, and I stayed put. So what if the neighbors watched me dance in the glass or bask in the garden in my cape of red hair? Was I the heroine or the femme fatale? Did they mistake me for the pinup girl posed on the mud flap, the silhouette tapping the milk tanker's wheels? One night stand, two night stand, everyone counting, except me in my peignoir with a vase of thistles, dabbing more scent on the backs of my knees. I woke sometimes in a veil of disbelief, those amazed mornings after 2 hours sleep, when you meet your own face and it looks like a girl's, strangely bright, alert, and lacking remorse. You always think you're changed, but you're not, of course. Once 200 men shared this piece of dirt, worked the Peckville sawmill till it turned to ash. 200 men, or maybe 20, enough for a legend, but not for me, June the shapeshifter, caught leaving the scene. My black-eyed girls bloomed all over the fields, my Susans not taking no for an answer, and the sweet peas climbed like pros up the net, tendril by tendril, as I scraped the beds clean. Like a dirge, the cows lumbered into the yard. They were swinging heavy, laden with dreams. The fence was hot, the barn was waiting. I told them, ladies, there's no way out. Clap. Okay, this one's called Hindsight. It was the kind of night June was made for, a night worth twice its weight in syrup, lemon balm air like a soft, damp cloth wrung and wrung by capable hands. It was a thick night you could eat alive, a souped-up night of steam and ginger, a night no one quite believed was real, except it was there and ripe for the picking, cash crop of love under the butter moon. The boys and girls slipped out of their skins, took the dark lake like a sidelong glance, parted the curtains of cedar wood as the firefly meteor shower began. One boy on the shore cupped a bug in his hands. It was cold light, perfectly efficient. He showed it to the girl dripping oil and water, how the bulb kept pulsing but gave no heat. The night spread a rumor, but the girl believed it. Her heart was a peach in a bowl of bones. His heart was the stone, and he hunted for insects, spelling her name in fire on the sand. He said, "Look, the moon's drawing water, meaning forecast, meaning rain," though she heard you are the halo, the weather, the circle of cirrus conjuring change. Then the night stepped out of its black chemise and lay its head across their laps. The pale night shone like a coin in a crack, and they fell to their knees to palm it. Night of fingers, night of tips, shameless night that would not sleep. Pastille night she put under her tongue and sucked the sugar till sugar was spit. Then he slipped it quickly into his pocket, and it balled up small, picked up lint. It swallowed its pride and turned to a pebble, then a piece of gravel, then a speck of grit. So, let's save the clapping. You can clap at the end. So the next poem is a title poem, and I like to dedicate it to my dad, who's no longer alive, even though it's quite a racy poem. But he was the one who taught me to drive on his stick shift and all that entailed. So I'm grateful for that. This is called Wanting It. Wasn't I beautiful? Wasn't I desperate? Didn't I give a shit about world peace, inner peace? Only wanting it. Secret graffiti spelled out in lip gloss on the locker room wall. The new underwire bit into my ribs, pushed me up, and I caught the mirror, wanted it, cocked a hip, wanted it, front seat, back seat, down on the floor, brag of bruises blooming like plums on my neck, tender, bad, and legitimate. I wanted to ditch it, wanted to drive, alone in the car for the first time, silence, such concentration my hands tongued the wheel. I could see the brushstroke of each yellow line, could feel my tires crush pieces of gravel, and my 10 toes alive inside my shoes, firm and quick on the pedals. There was an orange lodged underneath the clutch. Squeeze it and shift, squeeze it and there. Those boys who juice the halls with slouch and threw their bodies around the field, they watched when I punched it to second, third, burned my tracks along the high school tar. They looked at me as if I could kill them. They wanted to kill me back against a locker. I could feel my body jammed up on metal, my skin in ridges where the grates dug in, my skirt hiked up, my muscles like fish, my third eye watching from the outside in. I was some other girl. I was anyone's candy. So in a couple of weeks, I'm actually going back to my hometown, and I'm going to go to a AP English class at my high school. And maybe you guys can advise me whether I can read that poem. Probably not. I'm going to ask the teacher. So I'm going to lighten it up a little bit and go back to kindergarten. This poem is called A Marriage Story. Kindergarten was wood chips and Julio on my tail like a rocket through the playground. Black eyes and fast legs crawling in the tire tunnel, breath on my turtleneck, scrabbling the rope wall, bouncing me off the hanging walkway into the monkey bar house. Every recess, he said he would marry me. He said it like a threat, like, I'm gonna kill you. And I knew if I ran too slow and he caught me, it was true. At home, my mother brushed my brown hair like a precious fleece, static crackling beneath satin ribbon as I cried for my future, for my new life with Julio. Even after the promises and parent-teacher conference, after recess inside and timeouts for Julio, I cried like the world was ending, which it was, because Julio proclaimed I would grow up and leave home, small profit in corduroys, staking his claim where boys stashed mosses and secret bones played out their terrible shouting games. I was fast, but I couldn't outrun them. In another forest, the girl glimpsed the gold, trick apple of love concealed in underbrush, and she slowed her sprint to gather it up. The last warrior who raced her caught her like this, reeled her in like a fish on a line. At night in the king bed, my yellow ring shines, bites my sleeping finger sometimes without warning. So I write a lot about the weather, especially bad weather. And it's beautiful out now, but we all know it's only going in one direction. So this one's about saying goodbye to summer. It's called Divining. The big winters come in threes, and so we are due. Summer died last night. I was driving fast down Cemetery Road. My high beams carved a white tunnel through the black, swept the edge of the corn with their X-ray fury, the corn flashing by like a bamboo forest, so huge and leafy I didn't recognize it. Home, no porch light, 40 degrees and dropping fast. The gardens were uncovered and the coyotes whooped it up, the cat out hunting, the dog out cold, but trembling now and then, whining in her sleep. What kind of dreams will bring a dog to weep? I wanted to be the kind of woman who always has a bag packed, a small bag with underwear and potions, ready for the road at any moment. I planned to follow my life like a divining rod, and where it dipped, I'd stop for a while, dig for water, drink. How could I know that a stick would root me here at the crossroads of dust and corn, here in the boreal forest of change, the winter coming on like a freight train roaring, pulling its rattling months of cold, and me on the dark road, parallel to the tracks, racing that engine to the river. Okay. I guess I'll stay with the fall theme. Another autumn poem. This one is Doe at Dawn. Autumn settles all accounts, trading brown for green, tendering less for more. I travel the tunnel of gold into rust, tread summer's fallen canopy rotting on the forest floor, brush banks of jewelweed, hanging seed pods full ripe to bursting. They explode at first touch of thumb and forefinger, one last chance to scatter their story. You had no claim on me as I had no claim on you. July's drama arced lightning across the dome, wrote epics and symphonies on lake and sky. Now it's carcass and wishbone in a cold kitchen, standing alone over a soup of regret, torch sunflowers pressing last petals against the glass. Fall mornings are dark as cellars, a scrim of frost etched over grass. The deer rushed by at dawn like a phantom, hooves thundering on cut corn before the shadow passed. If you wait long enough, intensity fades. The snake crawls out of her used-up skin and coils in the stone wall. The spiral closes in again, nestles amidst dry sheaves and stalks. On another road, you too are raking leaves, stacking logs, reckoning up all we have lost. So I suspect many people in this room are not old enough to remember the 80s, really remember it, like the music and especially the fashion. But this poem is about 6th grade, and it's in some ways an homage to what we wore in the 80s, and it's called Green. When I kissed Ralph Tamboro at the 6th grade dance at the Little Red Schoolhouse, his parachute pants swishing above high-top Nikes, his black curls shorn, but for a tail hanging down. When Ralph kissed me in the little girl's room by the miniature sink, not French kissing yet, but 5 wet, real kisses, boys jumped off desks and girls preened and whispered, and twisted sisters screamed, "We're not gonna take it anymore." I was proud of my feet, like 100 on a spelling test. I kissed him in the bathroom and later in the yard, kissed him like a soldier, solitary and brave. I knew Ralph's lips had branded me fast, making the cool boys circle like sharks at recess, smirking, "How'd you like that tongue sushi at the dance?" When Ralph asked me out in the blaze of October, I was playing with my friends in the girls' tunnel, our wrists flanked with rubber bracelets, legs armored in zippered jeans. Ralph sent his emissaries from the boys' tunnel. 3 of them appeared to block out the light, arms crossed and high tops planted. They stood there like cops, savoring our fear. "Are you green?" the tallest one interrogated me. "What?" I said, looking down in my lap. "You know, afraid of sex and stuff like that. Green." The color hung in the air, color of grass growing under our bodies, color of summer's last canopy of leaves, color of the mountains like a bowl around our town, ancient shoreline of a glacial lake back when our playground was mud at the bottom. 3 boys guarded the mouth of the tunnel. Like a weapon, they wielded their power to name. "No," I said scornfully, narrowing my gaze. "No way," I repeated, rolling my eyes. "Will you go out with Ralph?" the tall one asked. And when I said, "Okay," they vanished as one, and the sun rushed in like heaven to blind us. "Let's get out of here," I told my friends. We scrambled the tunnel and sprinted the field, pounded the blacktop where rubber balls soared, and other girls spiked and tallied their scores. I knew right then I was over my head. I'd chosen my color, the color of autumn, maples on fire, apples falling like shells, crates of delicious and Jonah golds. I'd chosen my color forever as red, the opposite of green, not what they said. Okay, I'm going to read maybe 3 more. The next one I haven't read it aloud before, so we'll see. I think maybe every poet needs a good or maybe a bad breakup poem in her repertoire, so maybe this one's mine. It's called Trespass. Again, I walk out under a waxing moon, dragging the old dog on her new leash. In May, I was a conduit, a clear channel. Now November has me nailed to an empty field, caught between the milkweed and the specks of snow. You cannot go down the same path twice, the professor tells the children when they return from Narnia. So I scour the dead gardens with my shears and gloves, tear down the morning glories from the trellis I made, ravaged vines light as hay in my arms, all the skeleton left of summer's luminous body, blossoms pale as the underskin of a wrist, blue trumpets floating like lyrics on a June morning. My memory, offer it up. My hunger, offer it up. My pleasure, offer it up, until nothing is left but rage, antiseptic grain alcohol, clear burn in the throat as I cut back poppies, iris, evening primrose, turn the scraped beds into scars. Witness the goddess in her fury, combing the barren woods. If you've trespassed on what is rightfully hers, beware her sure aim, one arrow through your left ventricle, one arrow through your right palm, pinning you to the rough bark of a wolf maple, your heart flopping like a fish in its bowl of bones, anticipating her approach, sandaled feet stalking the desiccated path, while that old moon, like a false eye, whispers goat-tongued promises to the night. You are dark and beautiful. I cherish you. I need you. I will never leave you. And the night swallows all of it, star-struck girl, though she should know better, though she is left like an empty bed month after month. Got there with water here. Okay. So 2 more. And the next poem, the next poem may be for anyone who's ever loved someone who loves watching football and suspects that they love watching football more than they love them. So this is called First Super Bowl at My House. Takes place at Craftsbury, Vermont. Dark snow road to the general store. Is it down in single digits again? Wheels so cold I steer with 2 fingers. Banks so high my car bounces right off them. back to the middle of the road and drives. Parked outside in a running minivan, a woman sits hunched over a box of pizza, cradling a slice in both her hands as two kids in car seats scarf down their pie, a family so hungry they can't make it home. I came for milk and a block of cheese, whole milk, not skim, thick as saliva, sating the winter craving for fat. In the dusty aisles, a man's on my mind. He came from the West with his heart in a pack, his Grecian body riddled with scars, a story I invented in a summer of longing, but the story took flesh, and the flesh arrived. Now I'm buying him bags of salt and ice. I'm bowing my head to the Arctic air. The woman in her van doesn't want to go home. Maybe nobody's there, or worse than nobody. So she sits in the dark when the pizza's gone, when the kids fall asleep and the store shuts down. She watches the gas needle slowly drop, half tank, quarter tank, eighth, and drive. At my house, he cranks like the furnace on high. He rises like the sun and shines all over, talking of the time he dressed in leather, walked the red carpet at a Hollywood party, said he was a rock star, and they all believed him. Who wouldn't believe he was a god or a king, some power source burning inside the body that scares my hand when I graze his skin and forces water from his pores, his eyes? Sometimes he slides like hot butter into milk. Sometimes he's a warrior in ripped blue jeans. On screen, the heroes in silver helmets, thighs like pistons in silver tights, beat hard on each other till one breaks free, runs for safety, runs for his life. On my couch, he swipes chips in sour cream, sits braced up high between hope and fear. I drink his aura like strong dark beer, amazed like Alice growing smaller and smaller. Go baby, my chin on his knee. On a good day, he's like Pedro Martinez walking to the mound with a rocket in his sleeve, and the mound is already halfway to the plate. He stares down the world, he gives it the heat. But I'm the girl in the bleachers, tucked in a pea coat, sitting on my hands in the early season. The crowd, like a sine wave, rises and falls. The scent of pizza floats from the halls. And I know how she feels, the minivan woman, alone with her bundled up, red-faced hunger. An engine running that's not her own, though it keeps her warm. It gets her home. I don't know football, but I know weather. I know ice like water flows and travels. There are sheets of ice 100,000 years old, 2 miles thick, moving over the poles, actual glaciers on their way south, where we sit in the dark with fat in our mouths as the magic clock starts and stops and starts, and girls in silver boots kick the floodlights out. So the cool thing about that poem was that I actually married that guy. But the football still drives me crazy. So I'm going to read one more poem, just going back to summer, because it's supposed to be warm this weekend. This is called Outer Heron. Summer beckons us with sea glass, hunting someone's broken trash, transformed to gems for eagle eyes, finders, keepers at low tide. Playing hearts, drinking wine, we dropped into a sunset torpor, slid oysters like cold, salty ardor quietly into our mouths. You rode me in the wooden dory, strong back swinging a seaman's rhythm, out beyond the thread of life, while I perch like a flightless gull in the bow. Breathe in the effortless scent of Maine, cedar and moss and money, salt air laced with longing, and white sails scudding homeward bound. Wild blackberries nestled down private drives. A stunning sweep of ocean vista shimmered just out of sight beyond the no trespassing signs. There was no end to what I wanted, more than the children snug in their bunks, the foghorn all night diffusing our dreams, more than white feather quilts and leather seats, frozen custard flecked with vanilla bean. So I let you row me through lazy mist, past Witch Island, past the hypocrites, where the Atlantic flowed, clear, cold, and pure, and I slipped out of myself into that element, floating like a selkie above deep green sea lettuce, tresses streaming like fronds of sea kelp, till the cold salt penetrated the human marrow, and I sobbed, "Forgive me for my hunger." Thank you.